Hey, Frog Prince Rana here, and thank you for dropping by. During this whole pandemic that has been ravaging the earth with millions of deaths, we have heard many dumb and disturbing opinions from politicians, media spokespeople, and obviously general people. It did show us how awful we can be and not to give a crap about others. Today, we'll look at one of the dumbest takes I've heard when it comes to vaccine. This is by Rob Schmidt from Newsmax, a conservative American news and opinion website. Let's have a look at the video first.
You know, one thing I've always thought, and maybe you can guide me on this because obviously I'm not a doctor, but when I've always thought about vaccines, and I always think about just nature and the way everything works. And I feel like a vaccination in a weird way is just generally kind of going against nature. Like, I mean, if there is some disease out there, maybe there's just an ebb and flow to life where something's supposed to wipe out a certain amount of people, and that's just kind of the way evolution goes. Vaccines kind of stand in the way of that. Do you follow what I'm saying? Does that make sense to somebody in medicine?
This reminds me of a section from a book called The Fifth Elephant by my favorite author, Terry Pratchett. The conversation starts talking about Wallace Sonky. It's the other stuff, sir. Colin coughed nervously. He makes them rubber wallies, sir. Ah, the preventatives. Lots of people don't agree with that sort of thing, sir. So I understand. Colin drew himself up to attention again. Not natural, in my view, sir. Not in favor of unnatural things. Veterinary looked perplexed. You mean you eat your meat raw and sleep in a tree? Sir? Oh, nothing. So those uninitiated, that is Discworld, and Sonky invented rubber wallies or condom, and Rob just fits as a glove portraying Colin. I have so many questions for this absolute imbecile. Questions like, do you wear clothes? Do you eat cooked food? Do you live in a house? Obviously, I know the answer to all the questions I can think of. There is really nothing more to say at this point. I can wonder if Schmidt was suggesting that those considered to be weaker should be allowed to die. But that might just be giving him too much credit, and would also make him a sociopath. In my videos, I like to add some other related interesting facts. Today, I would like to read from an article titled 10 Ways the Earth is Trying to Kill You from How Stuff Works. Link is in description. At number 10, we have exterminating eruption. For each year of the 20th century, volcanoes killed more than 800 people. In recorded history, volcanoes have snuffed out the lives of roughly 250,000 humans, although that number could be much higher. Then we have earthquakes, which alone aren't typically what kill people. Instead, collapsing buildings crash, trap, and suffocate you. When this happens in heavily populated area, tens of thousands of people may die. In January 2010, a magnitude 7.0 quake struck Haiti, a poor country with many ramshackle buildings. After the dust had settled, more than 200,000 people were dead. Some estimates topped 300,000, making it one of the deadliest earthquakes in history. Followed by tsunamis that can be dozens of feet tall. But in deep water, the waves may not be apparent on the surface. When these waves approach land, the upper portion of the waves is faster on the move than the lower portion. Then massive water walls crash into and over sea walls, and entire cities with the violence of a flash flood combined with the power of several raging rivers. Concrete buildings may survive, or they may crumble beneath the water's force. Your only real hope of survival is high ground. In 2004, an earthquake of around magnitude 9.1 occurred in the Indian Ocean near Sumatra. The resulting tsunami affected 14 countries and blasted some with waves nearly 100 feet or 30 meters tall. Unrelenting water scoured entire towns, pushing buildings as though they were toys and drowning tens of thousands of people. When the waters finally dried, more than 230,000 people were dead, making this one of the worst natural disasters in human history. As if the harrowing violence of earthquakes and tsunamis weren't enough, the earth is also trying to sneak up on you, to kill you silently and quickly. That's right. Mother Earth is trying to smother you with poisonous gas, carbon dioxide, and she will use the cover of a friendly-looking lake to disguise her intentions. Some lakes, particularly those in the tropics, are relatively still, and the gas collects in large volumes. The unmoving water traps those gases until the pressure finally gives way in an enormous rush to the surface. As carbon dioxide gushes, it forms an invisible cloud that can travel miles from the lake, suffocating any creatures its path. In 1986, just such a cloud killed around 1,700 people in Cameroon. This kind of disasters may not be spectacular, but under the right circumstances, they're as deadly and insidious as any other dangers Earth wields. We have terrestrial rains that causes flash flood, which wash away fields and roads and sometimes even people. Known as dragon twist in Japan or fire tornado in other places, these are among the most visually stunning ways the Earth is trying to send you into the great beyond. Fire tornado happens when small vortices are paired with a ground fire. Swirling vortices occur when hot rising air crashes into areas of cooler, low-pressure air. This situation causes dust devils, which are basically smaller and much less dangerous version of tornadoes. However, when you pair a dust devil with a fire, things get serious in a hurry. The flames will actually swirl upward, creating a spinning funnel of flame that can scorch anything or anyone that happens to be nearby. Last week, we saw one at its full devastation in Northern California. Now to get to the really scary ones. At number 4, we have dark pandemic. Swine flu, smallpox, bird flu, plague, HIV, and so on and on. These are among the most frightening and uncontrollable means that Earth is using to kill all of us. Sometimes our medicines and countermeasures ward off disease. Other times, microbes get the upper hand, infecting and killing millions of people in a matter of years in what's called a pandemic, a disease that infects people across a huge geographical area. The Black Death was one of the most infamous pandemics in history. In 1347, it spread from China to Europe via trade ships. Dying sailors were stricken with the black boils that gave the disease its awful name. Caused by an airborne bacteria, it spread at a breakneck pace around the world, and it hit Europe harder than anywhere else. By some estimates, the bacteria wiped out around 200 million in just a couple of years. Lower estimates are still staggering, at roughly 75 million. There are estimates that indicate that 60% of London's population was killed by the Black Death. The Black Death is simply one example of a pandemic. There have been others, like the 1918 Spanish flu that killed around 200,000, or the HIV outbreak, which is ongoing and has killed perhaps 25 million people. It's further proof that the smallest enemies are sometimes the worst. Then we have heat wave. It may not sound like much, but in 2003, a 3-week heat wave hung over Europe. Utility lines simply melted. The heat began to rise in apartments and offices across the continent, and the results were catastrophic. Elderly people with poor mobility, higher levels of poverty and poorer health began dying in droves. If they had air conditioning at all, their units failed in the scorching heat and then they perished in their stifling residence. Officials found more than 15,000 people just in Paris, and across Europe, the death toll was around 70,000. Heat kills by stressing your body to the breaking point, raising your heart rate and respiration, and then often triggering secondary effects such as heart attack or stroke. Once your body temperature shoots past 40 degrees Celsius, you will have a harder time recovering. This is especially true for older people. After days or weeks of high heat, these vulnerable peoples die quickly, all thanks to awful, ceaseless heat exposure. At number 2, we have hurricanes, godlike bringer of death. They hover on the horizon for days, slowly approaching land with inescapable, ominous fury. Sometimes they will veer off at the last moment, sparing entire countries. Other times, they will smash directly into major towns and cities, causing misery in a multitude of ways. In 1970, Vola cyclone that landed in Bangladesh, with winds of more than 115 miles per hour, it whipped such a frenzy that its storm surge killed up to 500,000 people, making it one of the deadliest natural disasters ever. Finally, first place goes to parasites, creatures that exploit other creatures, the host, for food, shelter, or protection. Sometimes parasites are fairly innocuous. Then there is the Loa Loa worm, which is native to wet areas of West Africa. Spread by fly bites, the worm courses beneath your skin, can wiggle its way into your eyes. Horrifying? Yes, but the Loa Loa isn't alone. If parasitism is an integral part of life on Earth, what exactly does that say about our lives on this planet? Earth may be our life raft in an ocean of universal vastness and uncertainty, but it is far from a benign and friendly place. I'll keep talking about how vaccine has helped us, saving millions of lives. I have several videos on that. If you want a brief history, there are links in the description. Rob's guest, cardiologist Peter A. McNau, argued that COVID-19 vaccines should just be targeted to protect the higher risk individuals. It is just harrowing listening to Peter. All I can say to that is A. Natural immunity is not superior to vaccine immunity, and B. Young people are being hospitalized and suffering long-haul COVID-19, leading to grey matter brain degeneration. Back to Rob. His employer Newsmax has made clear that it feels differently as well, particularly about the effort to vaccinate Americans against the coronavirus. Newsmax as a network strongly supports President Biden's efforts to widely distribute the COVID vaccine. It is important for the safety of all, and especially those at higher risk, such as the elderly, a spokesperson told the Washington Post on Tuesday. The network then put some distance between its corporate position and Schmidt's remarks, without criticizing him by name. Medical professionals who have appeared on Newsmax have strongly encouraged Americans to get the vaccine, the spokesperson said. From time to time, a guest or host may not be as supportive of those efforts. However, they do not reflect the position of Newsmax. Well, that will be all for this video. If you found it useful, please do like and maybe even share it around. If you want to be super awesome, please consider subscribing to keep up with my new contents. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Wherever you are, have a safe day. Signing off.